All right, hi folks. This is Oz again, and today I have Mr. Nathan Duji, who is a practicing engineer. So, hi Nathan, how are you doing?
Hey, yeah, I'm all right, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. At least today it's quite sunny. So,
Yeah, it's
fortunately, I
nice.
think it's been quite sunny for the past few days. So,
Yeah,
we've gone through that hurdle. So, I think it's been snowing, I think every 3 or 4 days. Then that's ended. Then we had continuous rain, and we're now entering, sunny time. So we'll see
sunny
how
patch.
long.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll see how long that lasts for. At least it'd be nice
yeah,
if it's sunny to Easter. So we'll see.
yeah,
We'll see
yeah.
how that goes. But anyway, thanks for dedicating some of your time
That's cool.
over the weekend. I know that this is the time that particularly on Saturdays when we like to feel a bit bone idle. At least we kind of like winding down from the hard working week. So cheers for doing this for us.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah,
Okay. All right. So Nathan, so let's talk about you. So tell us about your background in terms of engineering.
yeah. So I'd say I started engineering in college. Went on to a university degree. I did a placement as part of that, which is quite good. So I worked in like a company that was developing a medical device. So I did
Hmm.
sort of research and development. That was really good. Finished my degree, and then I went and worked in manufacturing for a bit. So that was very different to research and development. Uh, so yeah, and then I've gone back into R&D for medical devices, which is where I'm currently working. So it's like product development stuff. But that's sort of my experience with like areas of engineering is I'd say manufacturing and some product development. So that's where I am at the moment. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So cheers for sharing that with us. So what inspired you to go into engineering?
I think so when I was at school, at GCSE level, I wasn't too sure what I wanted to do exactly, but the sort of two pathways that I saw at that time um, was going on to A levels,
Hmm.
which just felt a bit like continuing school. So I was just doing maybe like maths at a higher, more advanced level. And I just wanted to try something a bit different. My older brother had been doing engineering and he seemed to be like enjoying it and stuff. So I thought I'd give
Mm.
that a try. So I decided to go on like a college course because it was more driven by I just wanted to not do A levels, I suppose, at that
Okay.
time. So I wanted to try something different, you know. And I
Okay.
really enjoyed engineering. I think like the teaching was really good and it was a bit more applied and things. So I think I found like maths a bit like quite abstract.
Mm.
Um, but engineering was sort of I remember really liking mechanical principles because you were kind of applying that maths or
Okay.
math, whatever. So it was like, you know, if someone was saying like find an imaginary number, which is something in maths, like I didn't really know what that's supposed to look like. But
Mm.
for engineering, it's like find the force. I'm like, all right, number, newtons. It's very applied. So I kind of like that. But yeah, I'd say that's sort of yeah, just trying something different. Got quite into it. Continued it. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. So in terms of being at college, what were some of the things that you found enjoyable, and what were some of the areas that you found a bit challenging?
Um, what I think what I really enjoyed was it was it was quite broad. I'd say like I got to cover a lot of subjects that I otherwise didn't do in school. So I,
Mm.
like it overlapped with like areas of electronics. I remember doing like programmable logic controllers and stuff like that,
Mm.
which I don't think I would have done at A levels and things. So I think it was again sort of this more applied science. I quite liked science in school, but this was much more applied, and it got to like cover a lot of areas. You kind of saw what sorts of things you could do with like what education you were getting. I suppose it was quite good in that respect. Some of the challenges, yeah, I don't know, like thinking back at it, yeah, I've got to reflect on that a little bit. But I'd say like the teaching style was quite different, you know, like it was more independent at that level, which to be fair, it probably is at A levels as well. It's probably a lot more independent at that. But it was kind of transitioning out of like GCSE school and doing more independent study was a challenge to overcome. So, you know, it's like over the first year it was a bit more challenging, but in the second year, much more prepared for it and stuff. Yeah, but I mean, the support was there and stuff, you know what I mean? So like, yeah, it was good. It was just something a bit different. It was a bit of a change in the learning style I found. Yeah.
Okay, so you finished college and you decide to pursue university studies. So why not just go straight into employment? Why decide to
Yeah.
go to university?
That is something I like struggled with, was that decision and things. So again, I got to have a little think about that, because I remember talking. I mean, in the college they had what was it, like, you know, careers advisors and things, and I went and spoke to a couple of careers advisors about it. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, looking back, you know, maybe I could have explored like apprenticeships a little bit more as well and things. I think at that time I maybe had the conception that they weren't very available, or they weren't, you know, weren't a lot out there. But you know, I don't think I ever dug into and like researched that enough. But yeah, you know, yeah. As for going to work, I think I pursued university because, again, like I was enjoying the learning at college, which was really nice. So I was quite happy to continue like education. I enjoyed the learning and stuff like that. Um, yeah, yeah. I'll have a think about that one.
Okay,
Yeah,
so you decided to go to university. So in terms of what you studied at college was quite general, because you had the opportunity to have a bit of a taste in terms of doing electronics and electrical. You did a bit of PLC, then there was also the manufacturing element, and there was
yeah.
also the design S type stuff with it.
Mm.
So why did you decide to pursue mechanical engineering in particular?
I think for me at the time, so mechanical again, I felt like it could cover many areas. So it
Mm,
was like a process of just narrowing down what I enjoyed. And, you know, I find like you find out what you enjoy by like doing stuff, I suppose. You find out what you like and don't like. So yeah, mechanical seemed like a way to keep my options like fairly open in terms of what industries I could go into.
hmm
Because at the time I was deciding between civil engineering and mechanical. So yeah, mechanical seemed more like that. Um, yeah, I'm just trying to think. What was your question again? Sorry, I'm
No,
just
just asked it, but what made you decide to pursue mechanical engineering?
yeah,
What particularly about it attracted you to dedicate 3, 4 years of your life
yeah.
studying that?
I think I remember doing like design projects in college and things.
Mm,
So I remember we worked on like a project from start to finish. So we kind of learned like the full project process, I suppose, for like engineering,
mm,
and like really enjoying that, like really enjoying taking something from like concept stages all the way through to manufacturing, and like learning the kinds of like engineering techniques you use to kind of manage a project, do concept design stuff, which I found
mm,
really like benefited me at university as well. Like in the first year, you know, obviously everyone has different educational backgrounds, and mine was perhaps yeah, more engineering specific at that stage than someone who
mm,
did A levels, which was maybe more, I don't know, sort of theory and science and things like that.
hmm
So when we were doing design classes, I remember being like, oh, I know this project
hmm
process, project proposal, concept design, and like going through it, which
Yeah,
other people perhaps hadn't have had the experience of. So when they were trying to do assignments, they didn't really know what steps to take to like what it should look like at the end.
yeah.
So I
So
think I really enjoyed that project
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. So that
So I
was
was like, oh,
a bit. So a bit of cheating then, because at least
yeah,
you
yeah,
had
I suppose
prior
so.
knowledge in terms of what you're for. All right. So let's talk a little bit about your journey, your learning journey at university. What did you find different in terms of the transition that you have to make, the adjustments you have to make, and how, coming from a BTEC background, I mean, how did that focus in terms of your learning experience, um, kind of like, so let's put it this way, reflected on, your counterparts that went through A levels. So what
Yeah.
were some of like the commonalities and what were the distinctions?
Um, yeah, I think about that because, like I say, what I was talking about, I remember struggling with the maths and stuff
Mm,
because obviously you go to university, you still study like advanced maths and stuff. So I
hmm
remember feeling like the people who'd come from an A levels background, especially the ones that had done maths at A levels, were a bit more advanced than me in that. So I remember like, having to seek help to like, outside of classes to try and
hmm
finish those assignments and things. But I definitely felt way more prepared for like the design and project stuff like we were talking about before because I had an idea, I'd followed that process. So that's something. In terms of just like general learning of things at university, again, there's like this transition from, the learning kind of style like at college and then into university because you go from maybe a smaller class to like a class of 200. So the lectures
mm,
are like fairly different. They're less sort of interactive maybe than smaller classes in some ways. That can, depending on the presentation of it, that can become less engaging, because
yeah.
I've certainly had, like really engaging lectures. But again, at least for me, I felt like that was just a change that I had to like, to get through. But after that, I remember my second year, like it was easy staying awake at lectures. Do you know what I mean? I was much more prepared for like how to for like the learning style and
Mm,
stuff like that. So it was much better that. Again, it's just a different thing you've got to sort of get used to, and you know, part of I think like I don't know if I'd say it's overlooked, but like the teacher itself, like the
mm,
teaching style, if it doesn't quite mesh with you, you can find it really challenging to try and like learn in that environment.
hmm
But I'd say like for someone who's gonna try engineering or try anything, you know, sometimes you might think you don't like a subject, but it's not actually the subject you don't like, it's the style of teaching, it's just not engaging you.
mm,
So like an example would be in my first year of uni, I remembered really disliking thermodynamics, or really enjoying fluid mechanics.
mm,
And then I was like, oh, I hate thermo, I just don't enjoy it. But then in the second year, the teacher switched. The guy that had been teaching me fluid mechanics in year one, which I
hmm
found really engaging, was now teaching us thermo in year two. And I found it really engaging and I really enjoyed that. And then the fluid mechanics teacher had changed in year two and I didn't enjoy that as much at that time. So I think it's just, I'd say like try things and keep an open mind about it because sometimes it's just the teaching style doesn't quite fit your learning style, which
mm,
isn't to say like it's wrong, it's just it doesn't suit you. So
mm,
that's again a challenge that perhaps a lot of people like, they'll try university and they'll be like, I don't like this subject, I hate this, and they won't enjoy it, or they might decide to stop pursuing it. But
mm.
keep an open mind, and you might find you actually do really like it.
Okay. Oh, that's some great advice. All right. So you progressed to the second year and you now have to make that decision. Do I do a year out or do I just jump straight into the final year? So talk us through your experiences at that point. What was going through your mind and what made you decide to take a year out?
Yeah, I think I wanted to, yeah, do a placement. Yeah, one was the advice that it was quite good for your like career and things.
Hmm
It was good for your like employability after university and stuff. But also just to sort of try and like try working for a year and stuff and see what you sort of thought, because like it's education can be a little bit different to working and stuff. So you get to apply a lot of the concepts you've learned, and like yeah, it's just another learning experience, isn't it? Um, so I think that was like the reason for wanting to do a placement. I'm sure there's something else that will come back to me in a bit. Uh, yeah.
So
It'll come
how,
back to me in a minute.
yeah. So how did you find making the adjustments to, experiencing, the real world in terms of real world engineering practice?
Yeah. I really enjoyed it. Like, I think I was quite fortunate with my placement. I mean, when I was applying, I was finding it quite difficult. I'd had a few interviews and I hadn't been offered anything. So I think for me, again, if someone is pursuing like a placement while they're at uni and things, um, keep applying, like keep looking, because I think new jobs get released. I mean, I got my job offer something like a couple of weeks before uni started or something, and then I got another phone call like a few weeks into that job for like another placement offer, which at that point I think would have been a bit too late.
Yeah.
But the point is, I think, some circumstances happen where maybe people can't do the placement in the end, or maybe they suddenly get funding. I don't know what the reasons are, but the point is, you know, they're even quite late into the summer, there are still placement opportunities that come up,
Hmm.
which is good. But yeah, I was really fortunate with mine. I mean, yeah, I really enjoyed it right away. So that was like a research and development technician role in a medical device company. In terms of like adjusting to it, you know, yeah, I don't know. Like, I suppose like you've always like commuted to school, so that's not too bad, of an adjustment. Um, yeah, I think it's quite different. Like on my first day, I didn't really know what time I was allowed to leave because like no
Yeah.
one really tells you you're all adults at that point. So it's sort of
Hmm.
like, depending on the environment, obviously there are some workplaces that are a bit more structured. Manufacturing, I found, is a lot more structured because things are costed on time. The business
Hmm.
is run on time, whereas perhaps more development environments, in my experience, are more about results. So, 5 minutes here and there, no one's going to like really even think about it.
Hmm.
So yeah, in that environment I went into, I just didn't know what time I could leave. I think my manager had to tell me like, oh, you can leave at this time. So yeah, just I suppose not realizing like you'll be considered an adult when you go into it.
Yeah.
Um, so that's something. But yeah, it was a good experience for me. Um, you know, the company was like really well structured, so there was like quite well defined channels for work to sort of come down. It's like, here's a
Hmm.
form, this is the job you're going to do, and you do that. Not all companies run like that. Um,
Mm.
it sort of, depends on how they run the business, what the business even is. But yeah, I found the transition okay. Yeah.
Right, cool. And during your journey, how did that influence your decision moving forward into your final year?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I had a really good experience on placement, so I was quite resolved that I wanted to get back to that kind of work. So when I went into final year, I'd chatted with some third year students and stuff during my time at uni, um, and I remember one of them told me that you get a lot more for sort of, I guess, free time in your third year,
Mm.
because it's more like you're given like full ownership of a project, which is your dissertation, and like other sorts of works kind of follow this model as well, but it's more about how much time you put in. Whereas in my
Mm.
second year, that was like a 9 to 5 job of lectures. Like, it was honestly the most lectures I've ever done, um, which is very different to third year, because in third year you suddenly get back and they're like, here's a project. You obviously still have lectures, but you're kind of given a lot more gaps between those lectures, and you might have a half day one day, and so you're kind of, the way I would say, I don't know who's expecting you to do. The way I expect you would manage it is that that's your time to still be doing your own work, working on your own projects and things. Um, so yeah, that's how I found third year. Having a year at work, I think, sort of, made me feel like I wanted to get back to that. So third year, I was
Hmm.
quite happy to get there, and I was quite happy to have like free time to work on my own projects. Like the dissertation and stuff like that. I felt more prepared for that from the placement, because again, the placement, you get like an adult, and it's like, here's some tasks you need to do,
Hmm.
and you've got to kind of fit that in and manage your workload. So I felt like third year was very similar. You're managing your workload.
Mm. Okay. All right. Cheers for sharing that. So let's talk a little bit about your dissertation. So what was your dissertation on in the final year? And How did you go about pursuing that to lead to whatever the agreed deliverables were?
Yeah. So my dissertation was sort of like focused on experimental stuff. So
Mm,
um, it was for a technology called vacuum insulation panels.
mm,
So the product itself is the part I was looking at was a material. It's like a nanoparticulate. It's like a nano scaled powder.
mm,
It has very good insulation properties. So they use it for insulation for, or the intent is like, insulation for anything, perhaps for buildings,
mm,
because it can give very good insulation without taking up too much real estate, because it's such an effective material that it can be, quite thin or whatever. So that has like space savings and energy savings, because you're not losing as much heat through the walls of your house, for example.
mm,
So what my work was like experimentally testing this material to evaluate how effective of an insulator it was. And I sort of chose that because it overlapped quite well with what I've been doing on placement. I'd done a lot of experimental kind of work, so
mm,
I knew like the stuff involved in that, um, the paperwork involved in that, doing like safety assessments and stuff. So I was a bit more prepared for that sort of part of the work as well, because that's a part of the dissertation. Um, yeah. What else were you asking about? Sorry, it's
Yeah, I
gone out
was
my
just
head.
talking about, I mean, like the elements regarding that. So, for
Yeah.
instance, if I'm reflecting on, current students at university, the phase that
Mm,
they normally don't like is, undertaking research.
mm.
They really, a
Yeah,
good
that's a big
majority of
part
them,
of it. Yeah.
they really don't like undertaking research. But do you feel that that's necessary?
Like necessary the research part of the dissertation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so. I think so because like when you get into like working and stuff like that, like research. I mean, I suppose depending on the industry, but it's a good skill to have.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's good to learn like the kind of locations you can go to gather research and things. Yeah, I mean, you mentioning it, I totally forgot, but that is literally like 40% of it or something, you know?
Yeah, it
So
still
obviously,
is.
I obviously blocked it out, but yeah. Um, but yeah, it was all right. I think, yeah, it's a good skill to have, and it's good to see, like, part of working just generally is you're working with other people, and so you have to pick up the work that they've done and be able to, read through what they've done, understand it. Similarly, you've got to be documenting what you're doing, because long after you're gone from the company or whatever, someone's going to be picking up your work and looking at it. So like generally it makes the company run better. It's probably like a bit of a courtesy as well to document what you're doing. But yeah, so it's good because it kind of shows you like, how you can be documenting your work. It gives you ideas on how you can be doing that, and the sorts of stuff you might be doing in industry and stuff. So yeah, it's pretty important, I'd say.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's excellent advice because I think students who are now getting ready to, finish their final year going to industry, they don't really think about those elements. So I think that's
Mm.
excellent advice. All right, so you've now then finished uni. Hey, so at least you've gone through the pain and suffering studying for 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
So you're now ready for, for the real world. So talk us through, in terms of your post graduate working experiences. So why did you decide to go into manufacturing? Was there a question of, okay, that's what's available, you have a particular interest in going to that field, and then branching to R&D? So what was the sequence of events leading to your current status at the moment?
Yeah. So uni, I went back to my placement company.
Okay.
So I did more of the research development technician type role. The project had moved a bit forward since then, so I got to like experience new areas. So a second sort of phase of the project was kicking off, and so I got to do more feasibility work and concept generation and stuff like that. So it was really good. And the reason that I left that one was like the commuting aspect, because the office had relocated at that time. So
Okay.
commuting to work was a bit more difficult and challenging and things. And again, you know, it's sort of ready to try something new and stuff. So like my next stop was like manufacturing, which yeah, I'd say was more about like availability. I found it quite challenging, like getting more work and stuff. I
Mm.
found like the availability of jobs that I was sort of willing to go for as well, like was quite limited, because I was specifically looking like around London and places that were
Mm.
commutable from where I was.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say, you know, certainly keep an open mind about where you're willing to go to work and things,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of great companies out of London. It's just at that time I want to stay there. So, you know, if that was like a driving decision for me, I made that quite difficult for myself. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, so I found it quite challenging getting a job, and then I got into like manufacturing. So I'd say it was more to do with like availability that. Um, but I actually came to enjoy manufacturing. Like, you know, again, like you learn sort of what you like and what you don't like by trying things. There are parts that you'll like and dislike about absolutely everything.
Mm-hmm.
Manufacturing, I did find that really interesting. But at a certain point, I wanted to do more product development, and manufacturing in the role that I was doing wasn't sort of suited for that. It wasn't kind of going in that direction. So I switched. But speaking about manufacturing a bit, like, yeah, again, you know, you find out what you like. Manufacturing was really interesting in terms of like workflows and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So like part of the job that was really quite engaging was like how people are working in the factory, how people are working in the offices, like the sort of support functions for that manufacturing service.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, there's like a quality system in place, and, you know, you can see like the shortcomings of it and stuff. So it was quite interesting, like just discussing that with colleagues, and like new ideas for that. You know, I learned of like a whole new world that I didn't really know about, which was, I don't even know what to call it right now on the spot, but like manufacturing like theories, you know, like you
Mm.
have like just in time, you
Yeah.
know, which is used by a lot of car manufacturers. In
Yeah.
fact, we might have even touched on that in college, thinking about it, like that particular one.
Yeah, we did.
But yeah,
Yeah, you guys
probably.
did, yeah, just in time, because that was in the business module, I believe. So looking
Yeah,
at different
probably. Yeah,
yeah, manufacturing systems and things like that.
yeah.
Then the philosophy of, you know, the Kanban system,
Kanban. Yeah,
and yeah, and Kaizen and all of that. Yeah, I'm a
yeah,
person
yeah.
that at uni you probably came across this term Taguchi. I don't know whether
Takushi. It's not ringing a bell.
I hated that. Really
Right.
hated. Yeah, yeah. If I'm reflecting back on university life, that was one of the things that I really didn't like. I don't know whether
Yeah,
because I think, you know, when the lecture happened, I think I was off ill.
yeah, yeah.
And when I came back, there were like tons of,
Yeah,
you know, notes. I was like, I really hate this. Even up to now,
yeah,
I still hate it.
yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Even up to now, I mean, yeah, the philosophy's fine, but it's just unnecessarily complicated. But if you're into, you know, design of experiments, then that's, you know, something that you may want to pursue to understand, you know, the implications of, you know, the probability of failure, the probability of component compliance and conformance and things like that. So yeah, okay, so at least, you know,
cool.
and I think it's also, you know, in terms of going to different areas, it's kind of like self-discovery to a certain
Yeah,
extent, so that at least you identify, okay, what are the things that really engages me, and what are the things that I absolutely hate.
yeah,
Else, yeah, but at least it gives you some understanding in terms of, okay, what the transitions are, you know,
mm,
when a product's been approved
yeah,
for production, and in terms of, okay, the different uh, production metrics. So, you know, whether something's going to be
yeah,
bespoke, or, you know, something's going to be manufactured in batches, or something's going to be mass produced. What are the systems in place to enable you, you know, have a product realized towards the end for
mm,
market? So yeah, so that's interesting.
yeah.
So
I mean,
yeah,
I was
carry
going to
on.
say just real quick. Yeah, speaking about that, you actually learn. Well, yeah, I think you learn a lot about like just business as well, like how businesses are run and things. Because what I found is like, you know, manufacturing. There are many ways to like cost a manufacturing job. I think like, you know, in my experience, typically it's costed on time. everything has like a pound value against the amount of time something takes, like an hourly rate for the machines, for the people that are working on the factory floor, all that sort of stuff, office functions. But so you learn a lot about business because like even like things like sales and purchasing, you get to see, again, it's like that full project process. You get to see like the full kind of business processes from like sale to invoicing. So you get to understand how like a business even runs and functions. So that's quite good experience to, because that's a big part of, well, everything really, but it's a big part of engineering, you know, which I didn't really get exposed to in like research and development, because I suppose development is a lot more abstract. It's like we're like, you know, creating something that's going to cash in big bucks later or whatever.
Yeah.
But right now you're spending money, whereas manufacturing, at least where I was very much like, you know, you're everything's got a cost and everything's got like a profit, and you're like balancing the two. Do you mind if I just shut this blind
Yeah,
for a
yeah,
second? It's
yeah,
just
yeah, no
like right in my
worries.
face. One
No,
second.
no worries. All right, so you were talking about the various business functions and, you know, having a greater awareness in terms of the business implication of you know, when, you know, product then transitions into manufacturing and things like that. And I think that's something that, you know, particularly students who are just entering, you know, the studies in engineering and in product design, things like that, they don't really take those elements on board. They just think that, okay, it's just about, you know, a narrow focus. I just want to do engineering, that's it. But they don't really think about the implications, you know, of what they do. Because what we try to, you know, tell students that the majority of the decisions that governs, you know, the cost towards manufacturing and, you know, and beyond is normally dictated by the decisions made during design and development. So it's very important that you do have that particular mindset of, okay, how do I rationalize or justify this, you know, this functionality and perform in respect to, you know, the cost implications? Is it really necessary? So that's something that, you know, as tutors, we tend to really drive and instill in students, that don't just do something for the sake of it because it looks, you know, at least engineering students at least have some awareness of that, because, you know, the chain of thought is much more convergent. Whereas with designers, you know, they just want to, you know, be in that bubble and do something overly fancy. So when you kind of like presenting those realities to them, you know, it's like, why? And, you know, they get upset. You know, they tend to be subjective. But once they go into, you know, do the placement, they come back, at least that sets in a bit. It's like, okay, this is why you have to do this, is why. So I think, you know, students undertaking placement, I think, you know, that's something that at least people like myself who are in that industry need to encourage students to do, so that at least they have that, you know, awareness of that.
Yeah.
So you did a bit of manufacturing, then you decided to go back and pursue R&D. So so talk us through that.
So yeah, just trying to think. I mean, I wanted to get back to more of like product development stuff. Yeah, I just sort of wanted to take my career in that direction. I quite enjoyed what I'd done in my first job. I enjoyed like really working on like one product and like really getting into just everything about it. Do you know what I mean? Like I enjoyed that kind of working, so I wanted to get back to that. Whereas manufacturing was like a lot of stuff, and for some things it was quite surface level. I prefer like just you know, picking apart something and like solving lots of problems with it and really developing it into like a really well engineered device. So yeah, that's the sort of place I wanted to go with that. An example would be like I mean, not getting too much into specifics, I suppose, but just working on devices and things. You know, you're developing it, you're finding problems that you're trying to solve and stuff. One of the good things about development as well, I found, is it overlaps with like there's a lot that goes into developing a product, so you overlap with different kind of disciplines of engineering. sometimes like you might be working with chemists, and it's interesting because they people, they have like a different educational background, they have a
Hmm.
different way of like viewing problems, I suppose, or what kind of, when you're trying to find the root cause of a problem, a chemist might be like, oh, like, it's a chemical process that's happening that's causing this problem. Whereas an engineer might say, oh, like it's heat, it's making something shrink, because
Mm.
that's your kind of what your education is. So that's very cool. So yeah, I'd say I like that about product development, and that's sort of why I wanted to get more into that. I'd say is like a big part is just learning like other viewpoints, other like just
Mm.
overlapping a bit with other engineering disciplines,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I think that's true because again, it depends on what manufacturing company you're dealing with. So if it's, let's say, an an original equipment manufacturer, it's much more inclusive because you didn't get to see the journey, from the empathy stage of, a given problem to the finalized realization to market. Whereas if it's a business that's solely focused, so let's say if it's a second tier supplier,
Mm.
and the manufacturing element becomes a bit too repetitive
Yeah.
if there's no variation in the products that they're producing. So I'll say, yeah, I do get that. But what really fascinates you about, I know that you've made some inference in terms of why you want to do, but so let's make it a bit more explicit in terms of what's the fascination in terms of research and development. What does it really entail? Is it just
Um,
research, reading a lot of books and things like that, or is there more to it than that?
yeah, I'd say there's more to it. I mean, that's obviously like a big part of it, which I myself, I would say I haven't had too much involvement in that area. A lot of the projects I've come into, so I'm quite early in my career, I'd say. A lot of the projects I've come into have, been ongoing for several years and
Mm,
things. But like, I definitely stumble onto old documents and like a lot of research papers and things like that, but I haven't actually had involvement. So that is a big part of it. I'd say for me, it's more in like the product development stage and like validating designs,
mm,
solving problems with a design. So like design changes and controlling that sort of stuff. But I'd say, yeah, what would like fascinate me? Um, Again, like I think I really enjoy just solving problems and things like that, and just getting really into a product and just developing it further. So I mean, I'm looking at like the computer mouse now. Even stuff like it's quite interesting when you get into like how things are made and stuff.
mm-hmm,
I think I really enjoy that. Like even stuff like the textures on the plastic, learning about how that's made, why that's even implemented as a design feature. In
mm,
some cases, it's purely because it masks smudges, and so you don't want someone to pick up your device for the first time, put it down, and now it's got like loads of smudges and it looks really dirty
mm,
because you're trying to set a particular kind of, you're sending like a particular message. I mean, in medical devices, you want everything to be like really clean and crisp and stuff.
mm,
But even the decisions behind stuff like that, when you're like injection molding something, you're trying to hide certain. I mean, this is maybe getting into more like product design stuff, but
mm,
it's sort of the way I see it is like, you know, it's product design, but it's also like the engineering of how you're actually making something. So it's
mm-hmm,
like it's all good and well to design something and be like that looks like a nice crisp surface and that's all good, but when you send it off to the tooler, it comes back and it's got like like ejection pin marks and split lines in locations that you don't want there to be split lines and stuff. And it's because like that's like two different people coming at it from two different
mm-hmm,
perspectives. One is purely product design and one is purely like tooling and manufacturing, like the engineering of that. And so it's like, no, you want the ejection pin mark there because that makes it cheaper and everything, but because it's important to the product design and like perhaps the product, like the image of the product and things, there's like a conversation between those two that have to happen,
yeah,
to come to some sort of agreement that works for both. So yeah, I think that's what I find fascinating about it is how to make things, how things are made.
mm,
Um, and the decisions behind them. So I think it's sort of that, like, product development fits really well into that, because you're kind of in the middle between those two things. You know, you're working on some product design stuff, and then you're trying to like realize that in a nice costly way, which is the engineering side of it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cheers for that. Um, well communicated, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay. So in terms of your, your academic and professional experience, what are the elements that you really enjoy, and what are the elements that you really don't like to this day?
Okay. Um, yeah, that's a good one. I've got to think about that for a minute. So I really enjoy, I like enjoy learning things. So like I think that's carried on since like education or like academic stuff. Um, yeah, I really enjoy that. I still like to, you know, learn new skills that I can apply to engineering, whether that's sort of like CAD packages and things, or more like prototyping stuff, you know,
Hmm.
getting like hands-on 3D printing experience. That's quite cool. Um, doing some like moldings and stuff. Um, yeah, I'd say I really enjoy that. I mean, we can talk more about that in a bit actually, if you want. So I'm thinking of like some resources and stuff. But yeah, in terms of what I dislike, yeah, I mean, there's bound to be like a long list of things I dislike, you know. But it will come back to me in a minute. Like,
Yeah, just name three.
yeah, yeah. So like, I'm thinking, I'm trying to split it up. Like in academic stuff, what did I dislike about academic? Because it seems like so long ago now. It's just like a dreamy, like nostalgic trip, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, you know, like independent study can be challenging sometimes, but you know, in like in the academic kind of space, you know, you're all in the same boat, so you have a lot of like support, moral and technical support around
Hmm.
you. So that's like, you know, it can be challenging, but there's the support there. Perhaps in the workplace, there's less of that, but you know, that might be unfair of me to say, because you know, that might be like my particular experience of a couple of places that I've worked and things. Um, but yeah, I'd say it's more independent, I suppose, in the workplace. So maybe this is why, you know, when you're like in school and stuff, you're all given the same work to do, and so
Hmm.
it's like, go do that, and it's like you're all like fully invested in getting that done. So in that way, there's support. Everyone is afforded the time to work on the same thing, and
Hmm.
therefore there's, you know, support in that way. But you know, when you get into like the office, there is support there, but it's a
Mm.
lot more independent. It's like if you had like 10 people screwing in a light bulb, like the manager would be like pulling their hair out, do you know what I mean? They'd be like,
Yeah.
oh my god, like. So it's more independent in that you know, you're given something to do and you should find a way to do that. And it's more like, yeah, you're working on it independently. The support is external. You don't feel like you're all working on the same thing and figuring it out together. um so yeah, that's something. But again, like, you know, yeah, it's personal taste, I suppose. You know, some people might really enjoy just being left alone. They might hate working with others in some ways. So
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah. Um,
um,
yeah,
but
I
yeah,
mean, it has its benefits, doesn't it? Sometimes working
yeah,
with a team, but sometimes you want that autonomy to really just focus
yeah,
on doing things your way. So,
definitely, yeah.
yeah. Oh,
But
okay.
I mean, yeah, that's maybe like a bit vague, but that's something I can think of, which I wouldn't say is like a tremendous problem for me. I'm like, oh, I really hate that, but that's something maybe that's a bit different. um yeah, what else do I like and dislike? Nothing springing to my mind. So if I think of something, I'll say it. But otherwise, I'll just be sitting here silently for about 10 minutes, really reflecting on it. You
Okay, so at least it's been mostly positive.
know? Yeah, I suppose so.
If there's
Yeah,
nothing coming to mind. So at the moment, what projects are you working on? What are you actually engaged in at this point in time?
yeah. So, so like at work and stuff. So I'm working in a place that is again, so it's developing a medical device. So um, the the kind of work I'm involved in is, yeah, the product development side. So um, the project has been going for several years. And it's just been, I mean, I've been there for about 2 years now. So it's just been a process of this product is being developed and designed.
Mm.
We're trying to design it to fulfill a certain application. So, you know, it's been designed with certain features in mind, but there's like a lot of parts that you have to consider. So they're all kind of interlinking. So when you change one thing, another thing has to change. So a lot of the work I would say is making design changes, testing them, seeing if they're functionally appropriate, and then like they suit other kinds of you know, criteria. But I'd say mainly like functional stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you've done that, a lot of documentation. So medical, you have a lot of quality management stuff to really control the design. You know, the idea being that you can't just change something because it can have a knock-on effect, and you know the potential risks of medical devices are, you know, quite high or whatever, because they're quite invasive in many cases. I mean, there's different tiers, but yeah, so a lot of documentation. If you change something, you have to change all the engineering specifications to suit that, fill out a lot of forms, and really track that, and
Mm-hmm.
track like the design history, why decisions were made. So yeah, and then once you have a product that you're ready to sort of like freeze and move forwards with, then you need to like validate that. So you do some like industry standard tests on it. You have to report it, and it goes through like a review to see if it's going to fit the function and it's
Mm-hmm.
not too high of a risk, like the risks are acceptable for what you're trying to achieve. Um, so I'd say that's the sort of work that I've been doing a lot of. And then obviously like any engineering, solving like a lot of problems as they come up. So I mean, I'll try and think of an example. Yeah, I don't think I should talk too specifically about it necessarily. So I don't know
NDAs and
what
all of that.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah,
All right.
exactly. But yeah, that sort of stuff, like fairly general, solving sorts of problems, and updating the documentation and validating it. You know.
Okay. All right. That's cool. So so my next question, because we're getting close to wrapping up this interview.
Yeah.
So what are some of your key achievements that you're proud of during your journey to becoming what you are at this point in time?
Yeah. So you cut out for a moment. You said, "What am I proud of, like at work and things?" Was it?
Work, during your educational journey. So it could be
Yeah.
anything. You know, it doesn't need to be, magnanimous. It could be, the smaller things.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. I think when we was in college doing that, uh, the project from like start to finish,
Hmm.
I found that really rewarding, being able to like really like create something, manufacture it, solve all the technical problems along the way, you know, like drag it to like a finished state or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, so I really enjoyed that. I think I really like connected with that. Like, so when I've done similar stuff at work, I think I've always like really found those like things quite rewarding. So I
Hmm.
consider those like quite big achievements for me. So again, like the placement stuff, you know, I made like an injection molded component
Hmm.
where it was the same thing, and I was like, oh, I know this game, you know, project proposal, concept design, go through the same kind of steps. So getting to repeat that and actually get some parts made in industry with like a application was really cool. I think that was quite rewarding. I'm trying to think what else. Like the manufacturing, taking on like a different challenge
Hmm.
was quite interesting because it was a very different kind of work that I was doing to what I had been used to and what I'd sort of intended to career wise, like what direction I wanted to go in. Um, it was really good. Like I really enjoyed learning about that and talking with my colleagues about, you know, different workflows and stuff like that suiting, because you know you'll develop like different workflows for like the different kinds of jobs you're doing. Because you know it's not like a one size fits all. It depends on what you're working on and stuff.
Hmm.
So I used to really enjoy that and like learning about that. And you know, I used to work with a guy who'd had a really long career in engineering. So I learned like a lot of stuff from him. I found that like really rewarding. As quite an achievement to like, you know, be given the freedom to develop my own workflows for like doing that. Um, just learn more stuff really. Yeah, that's all I can think of like right now, you know.
Yeah. All right. So cheers for that. So what would you advise anyone that's wants to go into engineering and become a practitioner, particularly the soft skills? Because I think in terms of the key subjects, I think it's almost pretty obvious. But again, if you want to shed light on that, I mean that'll
Mm,
be great. But in terms of the soft skills, so
yeah.
things like presentation skills, team working skills, and
Mm,
being someone who has that capability of reading and researching. So what will be the type of soft skills that's required? So you can look at it in terms of, okay, going into college after GCSE, so what are the skills that you need and the options out there, university, and um, in real-time practice. So what would you say?
yeah, there's a couple of things that come to my head. Um, I'll just write it down real quick before I forget. I've already forgotten one of them. It'll come back to me, you know. But I'd say the first thing that came to my head was like documentation. You know, I think, you know, is that maybe that's a soft skill. Maybe I'm talking more
Mm,
of like the mindset of like why
mm,
documentation is important.
hmm
Maybe an appreciation of that actual documentation. Maybe some would think it's like a technical skill, you know. But I would say like documentation is really important because you know you're working with people. So in
mm,
engineering, you know, at least in my experience, so I'd say like from now until the end of time, maybe like 100 years ago it was different, but like I'd say from now, generally you're going to be like working with people, like you're going to be working with like a fairly large team of people
mm,
who, you know, achieve some sort of outcome. And in that way, like documentation is really important because people need to be able to, you know, you need to be able to, if you don't turn up to work one day, people need to be able to fill that role somehow.
hmm
And so it's important for people to know like how you're working, or yeah, I don't know if I'm explaining it very well, but basically someone should be able to pick up where you left off. Um, so I think that's something that, you know, I had like some challenges with that in previous workplaces where there was always like an answer for, oh, I'm looking for this thing, go to this place, go to the place, oh, it's not there, oh, it's probably here. And you kind of just go around and around, and basically like everything is really challenging when like something hasn't been filed or something like that. So
mm.
I think that's quite important. Like soft skill is like an appreciation of like documenting stuff or doing that. I don't know if that quite overlaps, but that was something that came to my head. And
Yeah,
like
because I think that
communication.
that falls under the communication skills.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I suppose so. Yeah, because communication, I was thinking more of just working with people. You know, being able to, um, yeah, like explain things, explain your thought process. You know, I find sketching quite helpful. Even like not, I'm not very good at drawing or anything. Like not even sketching like a mechanical component. Even like sketching down like a workflow process. If I'm explaining
Mm,
to someone how I think we should be working or whatever, sketching that down helps me while I'm like thinking it through. So that's like a method of communication that sort of supports that. I think that's really important because again, so you're going to be working with people, and so you're trying to get your ideas across to them, and you know have them, you know, pick the bits they like of it. So
hmm
that's important. I think the documentation stuff, yeah, probably more overlaps with that because that's a way of like communicating with someone. Um, yeah, I'd say those are pretty important soft skills. And there was something else that popped into my head that will probably come back in a bit, but I don't know why. Like my brain's just today. So yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
um,
well, it's the weekend, so
yeah, yeah. That's yeah. I've like
yeah,
switched off and I've powered down, but
yeah. I tend to do that. So, for instance, with the subjects that I teach, if I'm out of that environment, I just switch off
mm,
automatically. So, if you try to ask me a question, if I'm not in that mindset,
yeah,
you're wasting your time.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So garbage in, garbage out. So
yeah,
yeah, okay. Yeah. So I think it's very important because again, it's not just about, the key subjects. You need to have, those elements that will enable you stand out. And I think that's something that,
mm,
when you're trying to explain to students, they seem not to comprehend that. Especially,
mm,
students who decide not to do a placement and decide to, move to buy. So certain people are quite, self-aware that, okay, things are important, but certain people don't really get until, they go into industry and realize that, oh, okay, I should have taken this seriously. I should have taken that seriously. So yeah, so that's some great advice. And I also believe that the motivation is another area too. Some people are not really self-motivated. They decide to pursue something for the sake of pursuing it because, oh, I've got a mate that's doing this and he's earning this amount of money, so why not follow suit? And you realize that it's not necessarily, for you, not because you're dumb, but maybe you don't have the right motivation in pursuing that.
Yeah, it's not engaging to you, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's cool. So in terms of the audience, I mean, in case you don't know, Nathan used to be a student of mine,
Yeah.
way back in the day.
I suppose it
Yeah.
was now, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it sometimes it feels like it was just yesterday, but it's been
Yeah.
a while. So we're talking what,
I'd say
2000
12
and
years or something.
wow, that makes me very old.
I think about 12 years maybe was the start of it.
12 years, 2009.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Long time,
Wow,
yeah.
I am very old. Yeah. So 12 years ago. So yeah, so I mean, remember, you know, kind of like vaguely, I mean, the time that you transitioned, no beard, you didn't really look
Yeah.
like this. But I mean, yeah. I mean, other than the beard, if we took everything off and gave you, the same haircut that you used to wear, yeah, you pretty much look
Same
like,
guy, yeah.
yeah, same guy. So yeah, so in terms of at least our interaction, how did you find it? I mean, during those
Yeah.
days.
Yeah. I mean, it's good. The things that come to my mind. So it was good. Again, sort of transitioning to a new learning style. I remember specifically, I think, talking to you about, like the BTEC kind of grading system. You have like the three
Mm,
levels: pass, merit, and distinction. You have work associated with each kind of level that you have to complete.
yeah.
I remembered finding it quite challenging to get like the distinction level grades. So like I was getting passes and I was quite frustrated by that because I was like, I'm trying to aim to get the good grade in it, get the top grade.
Why not?
Yeah, exactly. I found that quite challenging and quite frustrating at the time. And then I think, if I'd just been a bit more patient, because, obviously it was sort of like the start of the year. And so by the end of the year, I think, without really realizing it, you've like learned a lot and all of your classes kind of contribute to that,
Mm,
what you learn in business will probably help you in design, because when I'm writing my design assignments, I'm like, oh, the reason there's holes in this plate is because it makes it cheaper and lighter and all this sort of stuff. Yeah, of our interactions, I'd say quite frustrating at the start, not being able to get the top grade, but then obviously getting to work with you some more, getting to learn more, and then by the end of the year, I think I'd learned a bit more, and so the support was there. I just had to be a bit more patient. You know what I mean?
mm.
And by the end, I'd learned enough to maybe achieve those distinction grades with a bit of help and stuff. So yeah, I'd say that. I'm sure something else came to my mind, but yeah, I remember, you might not even remember this, but I
Mm.
remember like handing in some work to you, and you like glanced at it and you told me to like justify it, and I thought like so you were telling me to explain what I've talked about, and I was like, you barely looked at it, at least read it, and he's like, justify it, and like it was just like a communication glitch or
Mm.
whatever, because I was like, oh, this guy's not even looking at my work and stuff. How am I going to get this distinction? He won't even read it and stuff. And he just kept saying to me, just justify it. And it clicked for me that you meant like the presentation of the assignments was supposed to be justified, like typographically speaking. So you know how it's not aligned to left, it's like a nice square block of text, like a newspaper and stuff like that.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, like you mean that? And then obviously, finished that and handed in the assignment and got some actual feedback and stuff. So yeah, I don't know if you remember that interaction, but I always talk about that.
Yeah.
It really like tickles me that I didn't get that for like 5 minutes. I was there hassling you, and you're just like, oh God,
Yeah.
this kid.
I mean, I remember. I mean, one of the interactions that really comes to mind when I think of you is, yeah. I think again it comes back to the learning style, and I think at that point, and I think it was kind of like the same with a good number of students that they always expected tutors to kind of like fill in the blanks, so to say.
Mm.
So I remember, I think at that time we probably had moved into the new building. I don't remember whether we were in the new building
Yeah,
or
I
was
remember the new building. Yeah, I
in
forgot
the old
about
building. I don't know. I'm still wondering, but I do remember that at
that.
least
Yeah,
we finished off in the new
yeah,
building. But I'm just talking like the preliminary stages. And
yeah,
again, at that time you're just barely hitting the passes, and so to say.
yeah,
So I remember that there was a particular time that at least you came to me, and I think you were moaning a bit,
yeah. Because that
and
sounds like it.
you were moaning a bit. So I think it's like, okay, what, I must just give it to you straight. And I remember, there was a few tears here and there.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that was kind of like the transition point, whereby this time you started to really document stuff. Because I think that
Yeah.
was something that students weren't doing that when we were talking, in the classroom, and you were giving exposition in terms of, okay, what does this mean? What does this do?
Mm,
You weren't taking the notes. Then I think the moment you started doing that and you were reflecting
mm,
on it, because again, it also helped you to really reflect, okay, what
yeah.
do I understand by this, and how do I need to use that information? And I think that's where we start to see that transition of you
Mm,
now, pushing yourself a bit more.
yeah.
And to be very honest, up to now, I still feel a little bit, because of maybe I came a bit too strong, so I do apologize for that.
I don't remember it too bad, so it's all
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, so yeah, so it was always a pleasure, like teaching,
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
Alan comes to mind,
yeah, yeah.
and who else? There was this funny guy. What's his name?
Oh, they're
Javid.
all funny.
Yeah,
Javid, yeah,
Javid. Yeah, yeah. But you guys weren't as bad as the 2011 group, I
yeah. Oh,
believe.
like the next few years, yeah. All right, yeah.
Oh,
They're challenging,
they
yeah.
were just, yeah, they just came in to just have fun. But eventually,
All right.
they succeeded.
Well,
But
that's good. Yeah, that's good.
yeah, but they were a headache. Always fighting. I'm just there because I was the tutor for the engineering students. So
Yeah,
I'll just
yeah,
be there. I'm already stressed out, and I just get a phone. Oh yeah, your students involved in this fight. I'm like, what? This afternoon we're trying to
yeah,
focus. What are you actually doing there? You're supposed to be in the classroom,
yeah,
with this teacher or that teacher. What are you doing fighting and arguing? So there's
yeah,
always someone getting into trouble. So yeah.
yeah.
To be fair, I think the group before you and your group were
Mm.
kind of like the best behaved generally, even though you had
Okay, all right, yeah.
a few interesting characters in that cohort. Yeah, but
Yeah,
yeah, but a bit. To me, it was fun to be on the
yeah,
most part. It was fun. So yeah, so for me, it was a pleasure teaching you guys, and really to
yeah.
see you
That's
guys
cool.
achieve those grades, because I think about two or three of you were able to get distinctions, flush out. So
Yeah,
that to me, that was a hell of an accomplishment.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It
so
was good.
yeah, so well done on that. Okay, so I think we still have a bit of sun. I don't know, in terms of where you are, but yeah, it's very rare that you get to see, a day being sunny throughout. So normally you get a
Yeah.
bit of sun, then it starts to rain. But I think
Mm.
at least today, no, I think yesterday was a bit of rain, then it started to. But I think today, yeah, today is very, very sunny. So,
Seems all
uh,
right. Yeah.
yeah. So Nathan, thank you very much for dedicating some of your
Yeah.
time
Well,
over the
thanks for chatting
weekend.
to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm going to do is share this content with the audience, and hopefully anyone that's watching this has probably learnt at least a thing or two in terms of what STEM elements are about, and some of the disciplines within that umbrella of STEM. And at least you coming in and sharing your experiences will be a bit eye-opening to young people who are wishing to pursue engineering, and to realize that, you know what, yes, it is rewarding at the end, but you do need to invest, time and effort to, make it through those various hurdles. So thank you very much for sharing your experiences
No
with
worries,
us.
yeah.
And hopefully we could probably do this again, maybe,
Yeah.
focus on specifics. So maybe it could be, okay, design for manufacturing. So that could
Yeah.
be, an interesting thing to probably look at, because again, particularly with a lot of people before they go into industry, they don't really think about, the different iterations that's involved in design. So it's not just about designing for the purpose of something to work, but okay, if it works, but you can't really have it manufactured,
Yeah.
then what's the point? So you do need to have that element as part of your design thinking in making
Yeah.
those transitions from something that's on paper to something that really makes practical sense. And again, we've got those cost elements too. So, why do you need to invest this amount of money to justify, this defined value within the product? So,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's yeah. So it's been very, very interesting, learning. I mean, your journey, after you finished. Was it still called Merton when you left, or was it
I
South Thames
think
College?
I think it had just transitioned to South Thames like
Okay, just
afterwards
transition.
or just before
Yeah,
I left. Yeah.
yeah, and I think it's reverted back to Merton, if I believe.
Oh really? I don't know. I still call it
Yeah,
Merton in my head. So
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, in my mind, Merton sounds a bit distinct. So, yeah, but I think
Yeah.
it's still under the umbrella of South Thames College, but I think
Yeah. Yeah.
it's now being called um, Merton College. But
Right.
I believe that the engineering bit, they still do some of it, but I
Yeah.
think most of it's now being done in Kingston College, because right now
Oh,
I think
okay. Yeah.
they've now fallen under, South Thames. So that was
Yeah.
kind of like new. So sometimes I do,
Oh.
go back and see, okay, what's the old place doing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
like that. But yeah, so that's quite interesting. So R&D, because again, that was what I was into before transitioning into education. So yeah, that's great. So once again, thank you very much, Nathan.
Yeah.
So
Thanks.
hopefully we can do this again. I'll see if maybe a live Q&A thing would work. So at
Yeah.
least we can have that chat with students who are currently on the level 3 program or level 2
Yeah.
program, who are thinking about, okay, do I pursue a BTEC? Is a BTEC worthwhile? Because I think, to be very honest, sometimes the BTECs get a bit of a bad rep,
Yeah.
that, yeah, maybe they're not very capable compared to the A-level counterparts. But if you're looking at the greater scheme of it, everybody has kind of like the benefits or advantages and the
Mm.
kind of disadvantages. But it all comes down
Yeah.
to, again, that level of discipline that you need to have to at least balance and tip the scales towards in your favor. So that's very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So once again, thank you very much, Nathan.
Yeah.
And
Thanks for having me.
hopefully we can do this some other time. And to the audience, hopefully Nathan provided tons and tons of advice, and that would be an opportunity to probably reflect on some of the things that he said, and maybe use that as an opportunity to, do some amounts of reflection and self-improvement in terms of if you need to succeed in college or at university and in the real world, what are some of the things that you need to focus on? Because it's not just about having exceptional knowledge in, let's say, thermal fluids or engineering design. There's more to it than that. So,
Yeah.
so thank you very much, Nathan, and hopefully we get to do this some other time.
Yeah. That'd be cool.
All right. Okay. So, cheers, and to the audience. Hopefully you find this useful, and see you some other time.
you.